cold reality. After killing Fura and Tatis, Buzi turned his cold gaze to Rondu, the gun still hot in his hand. "Now it's your turn," he said, his tone devoid of any emotion. "I must say my anger subsided somewhat when I killed your two younger siblings." Rondu looked at Buzi with blood-red eyes, his gaze a mixture of hatred and excruciating pain. Heavy tears streamed down his cheeks, falling drop by drop to the ground, mingling with the blood of Fura and Tatis. Fura, Tatis. Rondu silently called out the names of his innocent siblings, his voice filled with unbearable sorrow and regret. His heart felt like it was being torn apart, each beat a pulse of indescribable agony. The pain of witnessing the brutal murder of his beloved siblings and the helplessness of being unable to protect them weighed heavily on Rondu's chest, making it difficult to breathe. An unforgettable pain. "This pain I will never forget," Rondu said, his voice choked with emotion. "I swear I will avenge Fura and Tatis. You will pay for everything you have done." Buzi looked at Rondu and smiled contemptuously. "Do you think you can do anything to me?" he mocked, his voice dripping with derision. "You couldn't save your siblings, and you won't be able to save yourself either." A warrior's resolve. Rondu did not respond verbally. He simply stared at Buzi, his eyes burning with determination and hatred. He knew the pain of losing Fura and Tatis would never fade, but that pain would become the driving force behind his fight for revenge and justice. Rondu would never forget his promise to his siblings, and he would do everything in his power to keep it. The moment of confrontation, Buzi held the gun and walked slowly towards Rondu, his eyes flashing with deep hatred. "This is the end for you, Rondu," Buzi said, his voice cold as ice. "You will never be able to avenge Fura and Tatis." Rondu, though exhausted and in excruciating pain, still held his head high, his challenging eyes looking straight at Buzi. "I'll see you again, Buzi. Soon," he said, his voice filled with unyielding determination. "Definitely." The execution. Buzi smirked, raising the gun and aiming at Rondu's head. "You can't see me again. I'm sure today will be your last day," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. Without hesitation, Buzi pulled the trigger. The first bullet whistled through the air and struck Rondu squarely in the forehead. Buzi didn't stop. He fired 3 more bullets, each one aimed precisely at Rondu's head. The gunfire rang out, each shot a death knell. Rondu collapsed, blood pouring from the wounds on his head, staining the ground beneath him a deep red. The aftermath. "You're not done with me yet, even though you're dead," Buzi said, his voice filled with cruelty. He turned to his subordinates. "Throw his body into the stream as bait for the fish." The hyenas obeyed, dragging Rondu's lifeless body away. The sound of rushing water echoed as Rondu's body was thrown into the cold stream. Buzi watched with cruel satisfaction. He did not know that Rondu's fighting spirit and hatred would never be extinguished. One day, Buzi would face the consequences of his crimes. The silent rescuer. As Buzi ordered his gang to retreat, his anger somewhat subsided, but his heart still ached from the loss of Ruse. The mission was complete, or so he thought. Unbeknownst to him, a shadow moved silently along the stream. This mysterious figure moved with incredible speed, a testament to their immense internal power. He had watched the entire situation unfold from the beginning, undetected by anyone. The rescue. The shadowy figure reached Rondu's body just as it was about to be swept away by the stream. With swift and precise movements, the rescuer pulled Rondu from the cold water, careful to avoid detection. The figure laid Rondu's body on the riverbank and quickly assessed his condition. The secret sanctuary. The mysterious person moved swiftly, carrying Rondu to a hidden sanctuary deep within the forest. The journey was arduous, but the mysterious figure's determination never wavered. Arriving at the secret place, they quickly summoned a renowned physician, known for his unparalleled skill and knowledge. The physician's astonishment. The famous physician, an elderly man with years of experience etched into the lines of his face, checked Rondu's pulse. His eyebrows furrowed in confusion as he felt the faint but unmistakable beat beneath his fingers. "He doesn't seem to be dead. His pulse is extremely strange. I've been practicing medicine for 20 years, but I've never seen anyone with a pulse like his," he said, his voice filled with surprise. The urgent operation. After pondering for a while, the physician sighed. "I can't believe it. He was hit by dozens of bullets and still survived." The immediate task is to remove the bullets from his body. With steady hands and a calm demeanor, the physician got to work, spending more than 2 hours meticulously extracting each bullet from Rondu's body. However, when he reached the 4 bullets lodged in Rondu's head, he shook his head helplessly. "I can't continue working. If I take these bullets out of his head, he will die immediately. Whether he survives or not depends on his fate." The struggle for survival. Leaving Rondu in the care of the mysterious person, the physician departed, his mind still reeling from what he had witnessed. Day after day, the mysterious person tended to Rondu with unwavering care. It seemed as though a miracle was taking place. Inside Rondu's body, a remarkable process was unfolding. The cells, internal power, and venom of the blood snake combined in a synergistic effort to save his life. The battle within, the venom of the blood snake, usually deadly, began to interact with Rondu's cells in an unprecedented way. The venom's properties were altering the very fabric of his biology, enhancing his regenerative capabilities. Rondu's internal power, cultivated through years of training and discipline, surged through his body, aiding the healing process. Together, these forces waged a silent battle against death. The slow recovery. A month passed, with the mysterious person continuing their diligent care. Each day, Rondu's condition improved slightly, but the threat of the bullets in his head loomed large. Then one day, while examining Rondu, the mysterious person made a startling discovery. The 4 bullets had miraculously exited Rondu's head. It was as if his body had rejected the foreign objects through sheer willpower. The miracle revealed: the human body is a marvel, capable of extraordinary feats, but Rondu's self-healing mechanism defied explanation. His recovery was unparalleled, a phenomenon unprecedented from ancient times to the modern day. The mysterious person marveled at the sight, their faith in Rondu's strength reaffirmed. The report at Mighty Gorilla's headquarters, a young gorilla sprinted into the room, breathless and eager to deliver a message to Heiss, the organization's supreme leader. The young gorilla leaned close, whispering into Heiss's ear so that no one else could hear. Heiss nodded solemnly, taking a moment to process the information. A father's concern. Heiss then sought out his daughter, finding her in the gardens of their vast estate. "Why don't you get married? You're over 23 years old. Are you planning to stay with your father for the rest of your life?" Heiss asked, his tone a mixture of concern and affection. The girl smiled softly but didn't answer. Heiss continued, "Let I make a match for you, okay?" She immediately responded, "No, father." Heiss persisted, "Or do you have a crush on someone?" The girl blushed and replied timidly, "I," but then fell silent. "A father's insight," Heiss chuckled warmly. "Let me guess, you have a crush on a guy you met at a restaurant over 5 years ago, right?" The girl's face turned crimson with embarrassment. How did you know? You were following me, right?" Heiss gently stroked his daughter's hair. "In this world, I know everything. Today I bring you joy. Follow me." The girl, feeling a mix of doubt and curiosity, thought, "Maybe my father has set someone up for me and wants me to meet him." But she asked anyway, "What's so funny, Dad?" Heiss simply smiled. "Follow me. You'll find out soon." Reluctantly, the girl followed her father into a small forest. As they walked, a small house came into view in the distance. The house was quaint and well kept, a serene refuge nestled amidst the trees. The discovery inside the house, everything was meticulously arranged. A small room with curtains appeared right at the entrance. Heiss entered first, pulling back the curtain to reveal a young man lying on the bed, his eyes closed. Heiss beckoned to his daughter. "Come here and see who it is." The joyful reunion. The girl walked over, her curiosity piqued. As she recognized the young man, her face turned red with surprise and then white with shock. She screamed with happiness. "Is it you? Why did you appear here? This world is so big. Where can I find you? I didn't expect you to appear in this situation." Tears of joy streamed down her face. Turning to her father, she asked, "What happened, father? How do you know him?" Heiss replied slowly, "He encountered a group of hyenas and was shot and seriously wounded. One of my men saw him about to die in the swift current of the stream and saved him." Learning his name, the girl, her eyes still wet with tears, asked, "What's his name, Dad?" Heiss answered, "According to what the person who saved him told me, his name is Rondu." The girl sat down next to Rondu, holding his hand tightly, tears still flowing. "You're back," she whispered. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time." The joy of recovery. After 30 days of Flora's dedicated care, Rondu finally opened his eyes, eliciting a joyous exclamation from the girl. "You're awake," she cried, her eyes gleaming with happiness. Rondu looked around, his surroundings unfamiliar. He turned to look at the girl, not recognizing her. His heart pounded when his eyes met hers. She was stunningly beautiful, as if no one could be more beautiful in the world. The girl hesitantly asked, "Do you recognize me?" "The pain of forgetfulness," Rondu replied softly. "I'm really sorry. I couldn't recognize who you were." Flora's face showed a flicker of disappointment, but she pressed on. "My name is Flora. We met at a restaurant more than 5 years ago. Don't you remember?" Rondu's mind was a blank slate, void of any memories, but his heart told him that this was Flora, the person he had dreamed of and loved passionately. He replied, I can't remember you, but my heart." Rondu couldn't fully express what he meant. He thought to himself, "My heart beat so fast when I opened my eyes to see you. You were the first image I encountered in this world." Flora seemed to understand the meaning behind Rondu's words. She smiled shyly, a gentle blush coloring her cheeks. The examination. The renowned doctor who had removed the bullets from Rondu's body was called to examine his health. The doctor approached Rondu, intending to take his pulse, but then withdrew his hand. "I don't need to take his pulse because the result is the same anyway," he said, and then asked, "Do you recognize any of them?" Rondu looked at Heiss, Flora, and the person who had saved him, but he didn't recognize anyone. He shook his head. The doctor continued, "Do you remember what your name is?" Rondu tried to search his mind for an answer. "What's my name?" "I don't remember." "Where is your house? Do you remember?" the doctor asked. Rondu frowned in frustration. "I don't remember where my house is." The diagnosis. The physician sighed. "He has temporary or permanent amnesia. The process of memory recovery depends on his physical condition and the patience of those around him." Having said that, the doctor left, leaving Rondu to grapple with his mixed emotions. A new reality. Rondu looked at his reflection in the mirror, filled with a mix of emotions. He didn't know who he was, where he came from, or what kind of family he had. The world felt larger and stranger than ever. Everything was hazy and uncertain, except for the vague feelings he had for Flora, the beautiful girl in front of him. In his heart, a strong desire arose to find himself and understand his forgotten past. Flora's compassion. Flora stayed by Rondu's side, offering him comfort and support. She told him stories of their past encounters, trying to jog his memory. She described the restaurant where they had met. Though Rondu could not remember, he listened intently, feeling a deep connection to her words. Feeling lost. When he woke up, Rondu felt completely lost, not knowing where he was or why he was there. He didn't have any memories to rely on, and the world around him felt completely strange. The unfamiliarity of his surroundings only intensified his confusion and fear. Every object, every sound, and every face was new to him, creating an overwhelming sense of disorientation. The absence of memory. Rondu's mind was a blank slate. He experienced a deep sense of anxiety about who he was, his past, and why he couldn't remember anything. The absence of memory left a void that was difficult to fill. He could not connect with any fragment of his life, and this lack of identity was both frustrating and frightening. Rondu's stress levels were high as he thought about the future and the uncertainty about his life. He felt like he had lost an important part of himself, as memories play a crucial role in personal identity. And losing those memories made him feel like he was no longer himself. Everything around Rondu became a new discovery. He felt like he was entering a whole new world where everything needed to be learned and rediscovered. This newness was both a curse and a blessing. On one hand, it was an opportunity to start fresh, to see the world with the eyes of a child. On the other hand, it was an arduous journey to rebuild a sense of self and understanding of the world. Rebuild a sense of the world. Rondu tried to learn about everything around him and attempted to rebuild a sense of the world. He observed people, listened to their conversations, and tried to grasp the context of his surroundings. He was determined to make sense of the world, to piece together any information that could help him understand who he was and where he came from. But having Flora always by his side eased Rondu's tensions. Her presence was a constant source of comfort and stability in his chaotic mind. Flora gently approached, her eyes shining with concern and worry. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle like a cool breeze in the sweltering heat. Rondu looked up, meeting Flora's eyes. In those eyes he saw warmth and tenderness. Flora sat down next to him, her hand gently placed on his hand. That soft touch calmed his heart, as if all his worries were gone. "Every step of the way. You don't remember me, but I'll be here, helping you every step of the way," Flora said, a gentle smile on her lips. She told him about the memories they had, about the small restaurant where they first met, and the first look that made them feel deep love without words. Rondu listened. Each word of Flora was like a sedative, soothing his tension. Even though he couldn't remember those memories, Flora's presence brought him a new and warm feeling. His heart beat more rhythmically, as if responding to her care and love. "I can't remember, but I feel you, Flora," Rondu exclaimed, his voice trembling but sincere. "You give me a feeling of security and warmth. I know that, no matter what my past is, right now, you are the most important thing to me." Flora smiled, tears sparkling in her eyes. She held Rondu's hand tightly, giving him warmth and hope. "You don't have to remember everything right away. We will get through it together. I believe that one day, you will remember everything. And no matter what, I will always be by your side." Rondu felt a peace spreading inside. Worries and tensions gradually faded away, giving way to a new and hopeful feeling. Flora, with her love and patience, became his guiding light in this dim world. Morning of uncertainty. Flora began to notice abnormalities in Rondu during a peaceful morning. The sunlight gently filtered through the window, illuminating the small room where Rondu was gradually recovering. Everything seemed normal, but something strange made Flora feel uneasy. She entered the room with a gentle smile, carrying a breakfast tray for Rondu. He was sitting on the bed, his eyes lost, looking far away through the window. She put the tray of food on the table and spoke softly. "Rondu, do you want breakfast?" Rondu turned his head. His eyes seemed not to recognize Flora. He frowned, then a cold voice rang out. "Who are you? Why am I here?" Flora was stunned. Her heart seemed to stop beating for a moment. She came closer, trying to keep her voice calm. "I'm Flora. Do not you remember me? I've been taking care of you all the time." Rondu stood up. His eyes were sharp and his voice changed, becoming aggressive. "I don't know who you are. Stay away from me." Flora stepped back, feeling a strange fear rising inside her. She left the room, closed the door, and stood in the hallway, trying to understand what had just happened. Just a few minutes later, she heard Rondu calling her name. This time it was a familiar, warm voice. "Flora? Where are you?" Flora opened the door, entered the room, and saw Rondu sitting on the bed, his face kind. He looked at her with worried eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't know what just happened. I feel like I've lost control. I just feel like I'm not completely myself. There are gaps in my memory, and I don't understand why." The emergence of a stranger day after day, Flora began to notice strange behavior in Rondu. There were times when he became cheerful, happy, and full of love. But sometimes he turned into a completely different person, cold and distant, sometimes even aggressive and threatening. One evening, as Flora and Rondu sat next to each other by the fire, Rondu began to talk about vague memories. But then suddenly he stopped, his eyes changed, and his voice became harsh. "Why are you here? What are you doing to me?" Flora realized that every time Rondu changed his personality, not only his voice, but also his gestures, eyes, and behavior were different. Seeking help. After the famous physician heard Flora tell him about Rondu's strange behavior, he declared that Rondu suffered from multiple personality disorder. He advised Flora to practice patience when taking care of patients with multiple personalities. Understanding and adapting, Flora took the doctor's advice to heart, dedicating herself to understanding Rondu's condition and finding ways to help him. She read numerous books on multiple personality disorder, attended support groups, and even consulted with other experts in the field. Her determination to help Rondu drove her to learn as much as she could about the disorder. She discovered that multiple personality disorder, now known as dissociative identity disorder, DID, often resulted from severe trauma. The mind, unable to cope with the pain, created alternate personalities to bear the burden. These personalities could be drastically different, each with its own set of memories, behaviors, and attitudes. Flora realized that she needed to approach each of Rondu's personalities with understanding and patience. She began to observe the triggers that caused the shifts, hoping to predict and manage the changes better. Despite the emotional toll it took on her, she remained committed to supporting Rondu. The intensifying disorder. As time passed, Flora noticed that Rondu's multiple personality disorder became more and more serious. During the day, Rondu was still the man she loved, gentle and thoughtful. But when night fell, a new personality appeared in Rondu, much more aggressive and daring than his real self. This new personality seemed completely different. Rondu at night became aggressive, his eyes sharp and his gestures full of threats. He no longer remembered Flora, no longer recognized her love and care. Instead, he came off as arrogant and sometimes even violent. The first frightening night. One night, Flora woke up startled and found Rondu nowhere. She panicked and searched all over the house and around the small forest but couldn't find him. Her heart seemed to be strangled by anxiety and fear. She knew that Rondu's new personality could put him in dangerous situations. The next morning, when the sun was just rising, Rondu returned. He looked tired and covered in mud. Flora ran to him, hugged him, tears welling up. "Where did you go? I'm so worried about you." Rondu, with the gentle voice of the main personality, looked at Flora with confused eyes. "I don't know. I just remember going out at night and then not remembering anything else." Pattern recognition. Flora began to realize that from 10 p.m. onwards, the new personality took over Rondu, and that at 6 a.m., his main personality returned. She recorded the time and Rondu's expressions, hoping to find a way to help him. This discovery was both enlightening and terrifying. Knowing the pattern meant she could prepare, but it also underscored the severity of Rondu's condition. Every night, Rondu transformed into a different person, becoming more and more aggressive and daring. Flora felt helpless when she could not control this change. The daily struggle. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Flora and Rondu tried to maintain a normal life. They worked together, talked, and shared happy moments. Rondu, in his primary state, was loving and aware of his condition, always expressing remorse for the chaos his alter ego caused. Flora found these moments precious, fueling her determination to find a solution.